Well, hello, Kepler teachers and anyone else who may eventually be watching. Hello, Ryan. Hello, Andy, Jeline, and Wesley in Brazil. Hello, teachers with mysterious usernames. We're not sure who you are. You're all very welcome. Glad to have you here. I'm here with our CEO, Daniel Fukushon. You want to say hi?
Hello, welcome to the stream.
So we're gonna do some very practical stuff today and some beginner level stuff. But it's important for us, I think, to kind of set a framework up so that we can have a more profitable conversation today, and also set up a couple of sessions that we're doing next week. So on Tuesday the 19th at 1 p.m., Scott and I will be here to talk about building your tribe. So we'll do a webinar just focused on building your tribe. And those of you who have been participating, who have been interacting with our training material have come across that phrase. So we're going to unpack in depth what that means. And then at the same time next Friday, so at 2 p.m. Pacific, next Friday, we are going to talk about a subject that I think will be near and dear to all of us, which is longevity and continuity as an independent teacher. So to whatever degree you think of yourself as an independent teacher, the fact that you're with Kepler, you're an independent teacher. Some of you may be 100%, some of you may be 10% as far as the time you spend, your income, but you're an independent teacher. So how can we have longevity with that? So that's the framework we have for the next couple of weeks. And Daniel and I wanted to talk a little bit about some of those general things before we brought on Christine Norval and Scott Postma at the time. They'll talk about some of their experiences, and what we would like from you, the teachers at that point, is to pepper us with questions, concerns, practical experiences, successes you've had. So at that point, let's have a conversation, not just between the four of us who will be on camera, but you guys as well. And I love seeing in the comments that you guys are already talking to each other. Beautiful. Daniel, I want to ask you why you're doing this.
So, why? You mean?
I'll take it from this slide. Yeah. I'm just kind of trying to put you on the spot, and I feel like I succeeded.
So, I was invited on here to be asked questions, not to lecture. I'm kidding.
Right.
I like to think about social media. I've actually interacted a lot with people about the pros and the cons. A little bit, I like to think of it as the marketplace of Athens, where it's not the Apostle Paul preached, at Mars Hill, he went to the marketplace because there were people there. And so and this is not directly about teaching, this is more of a general discussion of should I be on social media at all. Being on social media is like being present where people are, being at the marketplace. It doesn't mean that, let's say you're a pastor, that would be a reason to be on social media. It'd be like saying, I'm going to go where people are. And it doesn't make it evil not to be. The fisherman who says, you know what, I don't like crowded places, I'm going to go be my fisherman, over here. There's perfectly legitimate reasons to not be on social media, but to view it in that light is to say that social media is where people are gathering. It's there was a period where email was new and you loved your fax machine, and the fax machine kind of went out, and then the email came on. People are predominantly on social media. This is the way we communicate. And opting out, it would be saying, I'm not going to get the telephone. I prefer slow mail. I'm not going to get a fax machine. I'm not going to get email. And that's a legitimate thing, personally. But as independent teachers, I especially commend to you the use of new technology in this sense. The place where people are gathering. Independent teachers are going to be finding students who say, I like that person. It's relationship building. So right. You can't relationship build. You can't have a public presence in that sense. If you are going off to a monastery and saying, there's a lot of different ways to do that. So that's the big picture.
Yep. And as an independent teacher,
what was that?
As an independent teacher, the point is not to be someone who can go into the marketplace, into that agora, and be someone who controls the crowd and everyone's look. You want good conversations. That's why you've gone into the marketplace. So the point is not to be good at social media. It's to be a good teacher, right?
And fundamentally, it's where by simply being there, you know
Right.
what's going on. You might be having a one-on-one conversation with the guy next to you in a crowd. You may not be the guy. You don't have to be a dynamic person to be on social media.
Yes. And I think that's really important because, we don't want you guys to be intimidated by this. There is a factor of, oh, well, it's difficult to use these tools. And that's a legitimate, that's a hurdle to be overcome. But there's no goal here of, hey, I want 5,000 followers. I want 500,000 followers. That's not how we're measuring success. And by we, I don't mean Kepler. I mean we as independent teachers. We're measuring success by being able to work as teachers and to have these relationships, these families that are a part of our sphere of influence. So that's what's really important, being ourselves within that. It's not the number of followers. It's whether we can have these conversations. So this is something that Scott and I will be talking about at length, Scott Postma and I, on Tuesday. I'm a mammal. So if you guys interacted with our mammalian versus reptilian video, then you know what we mean by that. So Daniel and I and the whole team are doing all sorts of work with reptilian marketing, cold-blooded, spreading lots of eggs everywhere and hoping they hatch. You guys are the warm-blooded relationship. And so that also should be a relief. And we're not going to unpack that in a whole lot of depth, but you guys can do relationship. You have relationships already now. So I've put that quote from Saturday Night Live. I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. And doggone it, people like me. I figure you probably like our teachers, Daniel. Most of them, at least.
Yeah. Those I've had the pleasure of meeting, all except for maybe a few. I'm kidding.
Absolutely. I did all those. I've been doing all these interviews, and every single one has been pleasant.
Yeah, and that's a great example just of the power. So these interviews. So a lot of the teachers I have known before Kepler. A lot of them I got to know through these live interviews as well. That's an example of these interviews are, people are getting to know you. There's a certain relationship being formed there. It's to go back just a little bit to what I was saying. Being in the marketplace, being on social media it shouldn't really change who you are. It's simply going to a new place. If you can have a conversation with someone at your church or your a social group and say, I'm so glad I had that conversation. Now they wanted to be in my class because we had this conversation about history. Well, that's what we're talking about. It just need to be.
You can do that online.
You can do that online.
That's right. And not in a, when you're at church, there's something purposeful about that. You may not have sought out the person to say, hey, take my class, but you already have a relationship and it's a place you go. Right. And so, you can think of the internet as a big crowd that you're just wandering through. And if that's how you think of it, then you're not going to have the relationships where you'll bring people in, hey, to take my class. But if there are places where you go, and that can include your own places, your home, your restaurant, wherever, and so people can have conversations with you that lead to classes. There's something, you can make something organic, which means you're creating a tribe. So we're going to unpack this. I don't want to get into this too much today. We're going to unpack this on Tuesday. But we are going to talk today about what social media platforms you should use and how you should use them. And a lot of that is going to depend on how you answer certain questions to yourself. What does my own tribe look like, and how will it bring me business? And Daniel, I think so. Daniel is a social media enthusiast, has been for a long time. In particular, I'm anxious to hear him talk about the power of LinkedIn. But I wonder, Daniel, if you could talk to us briefly about how LinkedIn and some other platforms have been useful for you recently.
Yeah, so LinkedIn was actually, before I go there, I just want to say using you doing what you do does not have to. You don't have to change how you are and how you act on that, and different platforms will cater more to that. So it really isn't a soapbox. The email that Scott Postma sent with the Better Call Saul, I enjoyed that, because it's like, that's not what social media means, even if you see people who do that. So right. I just want to say that again, like it doesn't need to change who you are. It's more about just using a new tool to be who you are. And it doesn't mean there's no growth there. So yeah, LinkedIn is a platform I actually, I'm an early adopter of a lot of platforms. I signed up and about 10 years ago, and I looked around and I said, oh, this is for people looking for jobs. And most of the conversations I have with people about LinkedIn is, I'll say something like, oh, I had this interaction on LinkedIn. They're like, really? And I'll say, you should be on LinkedIn. And they're like, I have a job. Like, no. There was a time where LinkedIn was a job listing site, and it's not at all. It is now a social media for professionals, social media for professional development. People don't share their cat and their dog and their family photos on LinkedIn. They share articles, professional development. There is that profile page that says where you are and where you're working, but it's much more a professional social network. And so it's one that is easier to, you don't have to care for it as much. In other words, you can, get it up, spend a few hours, updating everything, getting it even an hour, spiffing it up, and then only log in once a month. And that's still a great value, even that, because for a couple reasons. So one, people can visit you over time and just and say, oh, this is what this person does. Oh, that's what they're doing now. They're a teacher at Kepler. You can put that on there, and other things you're doing and things you've accomplished. The second one is that as we are creating things, as whenever a Kepler teacher goes live with one of these lives with Joffrey, I cross-post it on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. And if I'm connected to this person on LinkedIn, I tag their account. So they see me post this new video, and they don't just see the teacher's name, they see that it's a link, and they'll go, huh, that's an interesting teacher. My kids might want to be in that class. The thing that someone will do, and this applies to Facebook too, but is they'll click that link and they'll start following you as a teacher, or they may, and then they'll see any updates you do, that they're now following you, and they're keeping you in naturally in mind. And it's not that announcement, hey, I have a class. Now when you post a video about your thoughts about, let's see, I think a few of our teachers were Gregory Soderbergh. Great job. He put out, he had just had a blog, and he wasn't promoting his classes necessarily. He was writing about, now I forgot what it was, but
well, so how has, but before I bring Christine and Scott on, how has LinkedIn helped you recently in a concrete way?
LinkedIn has, let's see, we've had some teachers who have discovered it through LinkedIn.
My dad found me on LinkedIn. The post tagging me. I haven't been using LinkedIn, and my dad was like, "Hey, your job must be going well. I see you popping up on LinkedIn all the time." Right. And I don't use LinkedIn, right, but I was showing up because of that.
When Joffrey came on, I was like, "You need to spruce up your LinkedIn profile." He then did that and then forgot about it, but I was tagging him. And so his dad said, oh, you're active. So you don't even have to personally babysit LinkedIn or Facebook, these platforms. If you have an initial, even a minimal initial presence, it'll be growing for you. It'll be allowing you to connect. So I encourage you to be active, but even being inactive, it's better to have these profiles.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that sort of usage now shortly as we bring on Scott and Christine. So Scott is our president. You are all very familiar with him, and Christine has graciously agreed to join us. So if you saw the live that Christine came on in, then you know all her background and her qualifications. But perhaps unbeknownst to you, she is also an author. And I think it would be fair to call you an artist. And so you have put yourself out there into the social media world because of those things, with varying degrees of success, mostly success, right? So Christine, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? You are muted. Oh, your mic's not connected, it says. So while you look at that, we'll let Scott just kind of briefly say hi.
Hello. Welcome, teachers. Glad to see you all. And good points that Daniel brought up. I really like the point that Joffrey and Daniel made about the Agora, thinking about social media as the marketplace, the place to meet people. This is the generation where people are online. This is where you're connecting, and so it's important that teachers, and we'll talk more about this, but find some places that they feel comfortable, some social media platforms that they feel comfortable navigating, and become active there.
And just so everyone knows, the idea of this panel is that Daniel and I are like fish in water when it comes to social media. We feel comfortable. Whether what we put out is stuff that you think is good or not is another question, but we feel comfortable. And then Scott and Christine are both people who have jumped into these waters and have successfully swum and gotten places and done things, but maybe it doesn't quite feel as natural. And I can hear by your laughter, Christine, that you are with us, mic-wise.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I think I have a short in one of my connections. I might have to replace that, but that's good. Better to learn it now, right?
Yeah, well, better now than in a lecture or a recitation.
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah, I jumped in with an author website right at the end of 2016 because I was told if you want to publish anything, even an article, you should have a website.
Yep.
So 6 months ahead, some things I had written, honestly, just for my own students and lecture preps and things I could make interesting. I created a blog, not intending to have a following of any kind, but just to have a little bit of presence to get started before choosing to self-publish a study guide. And so it was all new, and I was listening to a lot of different voices about what you should do
Right.
and how to start and build a presence. And I mean, I wasn't looking for numbers. It's not like I had some business how-to manual and was going to sell millions. I was just looking for fellow teachers, professors who are doing the same things, just finding your people, your tribe, as you mentioned. And so I jumped in on Twitter because they have a huge hashtag writing community, and the misspellings of writing community, which is really funny. Put a third M in there.
In the common misspelled hashtag.
It's really fun. And it's really thriving too, by the way. But I thought I was just supposed to follow any writer of anything and they would follow me back, which they did. But that did not equal participation or interaction. And then I realized after a year or two, oh, look, my numbers are great, but no one's liking what you post,
right,
or even cares what you quoted.
And that's such an important point. Like, it's participation is what you need to be after. I do have a question for you, Christine, about voice, but before I ask it, about voices, so I see some practical questions are already being posted. As they occur to you, please do just comment them, and we will be putting them up. So, for example, Andrew Cheney asks, "How often should one post on these platforms?" We're not going to answer yet, but Andrew's got the question in there. Okay, so we're going to go back later and make sure that we cover all of these important questions. And so, don't wait. As you think of them, do please go ahead and comment, and we'll make sure and ensure that we get to them. So, Christine, you talked about voices telling you to, you have to do this, you have to do that, and now you have Kepler telling you, we have to do this and we have to do that, right? So now you've had a little experience then with social media. How did you take that coming from Kepler, and how have you what have you done so far as a Kepler teacher with social media?
So I'll back up just a little to tell you what I did learn. And Scott knows this too. We both played the Twitter game. So we do have some experience, good and bad, with that. But what I found out over time, observing other teachers that really had interactions, or people who read and review books, or, hey, what do you think of the Oresteia, or things like that? I found out you can have 200 followers that really like the same things, and you have more interaction with 200 than you do with my number of 3,500. Because if I could do it again, I would go backwards and not look for the numbers or listen to the numbers game as an author, but to actually look for the people who are intelligently commenting, not trolling, that are really interested in conversation and sharing across the planet the same interests that you do, the same passions. And that is much more highly effective. And I'm finding those people. It took me years, but I'm finally finding them.
Yeah.
At the risk of inserting a somewhat geeky comment here, but there actually is an algorithmic aspect to what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
If you have 100 engaged fans, the way most social media algorithms work is that if you post something and some engaged people interact with it, they're going to show it to more people. And
Right.
if you have a bunch of bots following your account, so people who are like, I'm going to boost my posts and I'm going to get a bunch of people in India to like my page. You can do that, by the way. What's going to happen is that you post something, it's shown to some people who don't care about it, and then it gets buried. So, so not only is that true in the more social fundamental sense in terms of audience, but it's literally part of the algorithm. So
and that actually goes for like. You know, like for like is a thing on social media, right? Like, so,
Right.
And Christine experienced that. Well, if I just follow other writers, they're going to follow me back, and they do. It's like part of the deal, but it doesn't actually help anybody.
Right. You're hitting tally marks. It's absolutely unproductive is what it is, regardless of what people say. You just need numbers. No, that's not it at all. But with Keplr, the thing that has produced more interaction with me when I retweet a post or I'm tagged or somehow my name pops up is if I hashtag all of the other education hashtags I can think of. So if it's EduTwitter, if it's classical ed, if I'm tagging at Keplr Education because you forgot, or or adding an individual's name, or I don't know. For me, as a literature teacher, I hashtag ENG chat, AP Lit. There's all kinds in your field. Even the classical canon has a whole bunch of niche hashtags based on your subject. You'll see more interaction. Yeah.
And, you know, that is a good reason for us to follow each other, guys, and
Yeah.
everyone watching as well. There's not follow for follow. It's you can see what Christine is doing, right? What she's hashtagging and who she's talking to, and I should be doing that too. Or
Right.
that doesn't seem like a good idea for me, right? But following each other for that reason is helpful, and also using the marketing channel in Slack. But yeah, definitely follow each other to see what we're doing.
And if I could add something so there's if you're creating content not for likes and for growing your list, but for interaction, there is. I also want to just mention that sometimes the interaction is not immediate. I've had a lot of times where I've posted a whole series of things and they didn't get a lot of interaction with. I was posting them on multiple platforms, and then I'll bump into someone and say, "Really appreciated what you've been posting." People are often interacting without necessarily interacting on the space. But if you're writing because you're delivering something, if you're posting because you're sharing something, not trying to generate likes, but because it's worth sharing, even if you don't see immediate results, it is getting out.
Right. Just creating content regularly is an important part of this. Scott, what has your experience on social media been?
Before I tackle that, I just want to follow up with what you just said, but just talk about consistency. I know you're going to probably ask questions here in a minute. Andrew says, how often should one post on these platforms? And I think one of the big keys, one of the really big keys, isn't how much or the volume, but how consistent you're going to be. Because like Daniel was saying, and even what Christine was saying, people are watching, they're following, and they may engage if they're a troll, or they may not engage if they're genuinely interested, and they may defer their engagement to a later time. But keeping a consistent content, dripping content out is super, super important. But to come to the question that Joffrey's asking about my, involvement in social media, it is something that's not supernatural for me. Probably showing my age a little bit, or at least is what I attribute it to. I didn't grow up, with, cell phones and social media, and you see kids and young people all the time. This is second nature to a lot of people. But for some of us, this is, you happen to learn to swim in these waters. And it does get easier if you, find a social media platform that you feel like you can interact on and that you can actually contribute to, and then just be consistent there. I think that's a really good place to start for teachers or people who are not, maybe this isn't familiar, maybe this isn't comfortable for you. Find a place that you can have conversations and really just seek out, those kinds of conversations, and think of it as a funnel. All these conversations leading back to what you're doing as a teacher, or as in Christine's case as an author as well. But that should be part of your whole personal brand as an independent teacher, that you're having conversations about issues and ideas that are interesting and related to what you're doing in the big picture. And it doesn't have to necessarily be just about, if you're humanities teachers, humanities or STEM or something like that. It can be other things. Daniel's got all kinds of, Joffrey as well. Joffrey the Giant and Daniel's and David have, the Frontier Frenchman and things like this. I probably don't have that handle right, but other things.
Frontiersman. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
So these are other ideas. But one of the things that's important, we say this as we teach our students, and I think it's true in our marketing as well, your worldview comes out even in the other things you're interested in. And
yes.
So engaging and being able to interact with people, just being yourself, is going to develop a relationship with people in those areas.
Especially for Kepler teachers, people are going to sign up for a teacher, not just the class. They're not going to sign up because you wrote a really good class description. They want you as a teacher. And so if they see that you're you're an embodied person who goes to church and who reads these books and enjoys this, then they're like, I want my child to be influenced by that person. And so it's actually good marketing to share some of that and to put it out there. And obviously there's the question of how much and overshare and all that, but so that's a balanced question. But to share that is good marketing.
Yes,
Joffrey, you might want to answer Helen's question later.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, for sure. It's important for teachers to remember you're marketing yourselves. We love it when you use Kepler branding, and some content will be more conducive to that than not. But what we want is for people to sign up for Kepler classes because they love Christine Norval. And then they would sign up for her classes on any platform. We just got her, right? That's what we want. So remember that when you're creating content.
And hey, I'll chime in on that. My very first sign up, I think in February, the mom reached out to me through my author website. And that was before I think we had a contact link on the Kepler page. But she had found me at a conference, a YouTube video of a conference from a couple years ago. I heard me share a 30-minute devotion and said, I really like your personality. I think my daughter would click with you in this email. That's what she shared. So it was definitely not the book list.
You're right. Yeah, I really like your personality. That's a very revealing comment. So what I'd like to do now is for us to talk about platforms. And at the end of this stream, guys, I'm going to stay on. Maybe Daniel will as well. And I'll walk you through some very practical steps with each major platform on social media. But right now, we'd like to talk about the utility of these different platforms, how we have used them, what they're good for. And let's talk about Facebook first, and we can answer Helen's question as well after a little bit. How do you guys use Facebook? How have you found success? How have you failed?
Well, I'll start because Facebook's an old person's. This is what I'm told by the young people. Facebook's for old people. This is what they always say. So if you're, Instagram's actually getting there as well, but Snapchat and TikTok and some of these are the young people. But Facebook is, I think, probably best for slow content in terms of where Twitter's a constant feed and you got to stay up with it. But Facebook allows things to stay up longer or present longer. You can share it a lot easier. It's a little bit slower moving. As far as Helen's comment, as far as should you keep them together or separate, I've tried with a page for writing, and if I'm consistent, it actually serves very well. But when I'm not, I find that I'm just using both places and they kind of overlap. And so it really takes some intentionality, I think. But Facebook, I'm a fan of Facebook, I think, because that's probably where I connect with people the best. I'm not a fan of Twitter. I know other people have used it very well. And there's a few people that I could mention that I think do use it very well, whether I agree with everything that they think and do. But they use it very well. And I think it takes a certain kind of personality and a certain kind of commitment to use Twitter well.
I'd like to answer Helen's question as well. So there is a strategy that I think works fairly well for most people. I do recommend having a professional page. Even if you don't use it much, again, that going back to that beginning question I had of be present on platforms, even if you don't invest in all of them equally. I think it's good to have it, even if it just means us tagging you. And part of the distinction is that a public page, a dedicated page is a public page, and it is treated differently even when it comes to tagging and our ability to tag you in it and cross marketing. And so just having it is valuable. Now, if you are posting a lot and you're worried, I don't want to, I'm really honing in and posting every day, and it's people who are interested and are going to love it, but I don't want to bombard my friend list with being obnoxious. If you're kind of worried about that, then a good strategy is to definitely post as much as you want on your professional page about the dedicated issue, and then pick your favorite, maybe a post that was popular, or just one that you like, and share it from your personal page from your public page to your personal page. And then what it does is it doesn't bombard people. Don't say, well, unfollow that person, because my goodness, I know classical education is good, but every day, and then they'll say, if they are interested, they can go, oh, I want to actually see all their updates, and they can go to that. So that's a strategy that works really well if you're going to be posting a lot. If you're not posting a lot, then it becomes sort of a once a week, you might as well post it on your personal wall. Still, then do it. It's still good to post it to both, but don't post it personal, post it professional, and then cross post it. Now it becomes a double post in people's feed. And if at this point, I also just want to say, I'm a fish in water for social media. My mom is all the way on the other side of the spectrum, all the way. So I understand. I created her page for her. And so when it comes down to it, if you see my mom doing something good on social media, you can credit me for that. But the point is, I do understand that some of this is Chinese. Some of this is difficult and it can be learned. And even if it's difficult over time, we would like to help as much as we can I'll create a Facebook page for you if you just can't get it. But I'll also make a video showing you how to do it, which should answer the question for most people.
So do check out that material in our Google Classroom, guys. But I'm glad Daniel brought that up. We are willing to give you concrete help right now if you're struggling with, how do I start this? How do I make this look decent? You guys have our contact. Get in Slack, email us. And Daniel will be happy. I will be happy. We'll be happy to help you.
Christine, many people over the years.
Yeah, there you go. Christine, I see all your magic on Twitter. Do you use Facebook?
I do. And I was going to chime in. I agree 100% with what Daniel just shared because it works. I don't want to annoy my family and friends, but I do share some Kepler posts, just not every single one. And I already had a Facebook author page, and I used to think you had to post several times a day and all this stuff. And maybe 3 days a week, I share an article, a quote, a cartoon, some Kepler tidbit for the families that might follow me. But honestly, just 3 days a week is enough. And a few people, interact or comment. And I'm not looking for likes. It's not about the number of followers. It's about your people finding you. And it takes a little bit of time. And it's not huge, but I would definitely, there's a little bit of distance between that professional tutor or teacher, however you're advertising yourself, page versus the personal one, for sure.
Right. And and I use my Facebook page as many people use websites.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Yeah.
my Facebook page exists so people can find me if they don't know where I am exactly. And then they go to my page and they see, oh, Joffrey is on this or that platform. That's what Facebook pages do for me. What about Twitter? And we'll start with Christine, because we know she's active on Twitter. Timothy Enlow asks, is Twitter actually worth using for education? She's heard very little positive, too.
Okay, I'm going to say it carefully. I enjoy my interactions on Twitter. So I don't know that I will actually acquire a student through Twitter, but sharing just a lot of bibliophiles and Tolkien and Lewis lovers and podcast I follow or an interview I'm part of or something like that. Those interactions are fun for me. And the education part is sort of just a sideline. So I'm not sure actually if it would be as beneficial, because I would guess, and Daniel could probably confirm this, that the Facebook pages, more than anything else, you have more family audience because of that older audience. So whether it's a grandparent who sees you post about an interesting class or a parent who has students that are looking for coursework, to me, I mean, my best guess would be that Facebook would be the larger offering, that would be the bigger pond that you can actually hook something from.
That actually brings up something I wanted to make sure was said explicitly, and I'll probably be saying it explicitly in other videos. You need to be thinking about who you're marketing to, and you're usually not marketing to the kids. It's great if a student says, I really want to take French from so-and-so. But the truth is you're talking to parents, and look at how old your kids are. And think about the platforms that you're on. That's going to be significant, whether you're a grandparent or a parent. I have kids in high school right now. That basically means that I can talk to my peers and find clients, find students. And that's who I want to go after. I don't want to be trying to get high schoolers to get excited about my courses. Hopefully that'll happen, but just for targeting thought.
And so I am more on Facebook. That's where I tend to target, and there's a few benefits. You can link, you can tag, you can share more easily. Twitter, Instagram are a little more limited on that, but there is real value. So whether Christine, you're saying maybe there won't be someone that comes through these more, you might say, professional or conversations on Twitter. But the thing is, it is networking. It is people will say maybe they aren't your primary audience, the people you interact with, but now you're part of this network, and they have friends, and they are talking about, my school closed this fall and we're not sure what to do. Well, I'm in this Twitter conversation, you talking to this neighbor with this teacher who is part of something called Kepler. These conversations, if you're active on any platform and you're enjoying it, that's a really good sign. If it's drudgery to go up, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but you try to enjoy it. And if you think Twitter is the best thing ever, I I don't care for it as much as the others. But and if you're really engaged with Twitter, then do so. Yeah.
You know, there are definitely aspects of the medium is the message that come into play. For example, at Twitter, people come to see what you're going to say, and so it tempts you to be more provocative. Facebook, they want to see who you are, and we won't get in an argument about how those might be different, but it feels more stable.
Yeah.
That being said, Daniel's point about, if you enjoy it, but the truth is, if you're a 42-year-old language teacher like me, you're going to tend in certain directions, and so tend to like certain platforms. Those are probably the platforms you should be working on.
And it might be a good time-
RC's comment there, Joffrey. Instagram.
Absolutely.
Because that's a great point. Your actual subject may be conducive to a certain platform. If you're teaching art, Instagram is. I may have derailed where you were wanting to go, Joffrey.
So I actually want to talk about Ryan's comment, but we'll get to that next, because we do need to talk about Instagram. And so actually, I realize now this is Roxana Corradino. She is our art history teacher.
Yes.
The mysterious RCCGC.
It might be worth just inserting real quickly that if you're not comfortable, like say on Twitter or something, there are a lot of tools where you can link just to keep your presence up, where you're not having to engage necessarily as much. So you could link things that you put up on Facebook, or even set up buffers and things like that to drip content to places like Twitter that may pick up a conversation or share something that somebody might engage with without having to be on there all the time if you're not comfortable with it.
Right. Well, let's talk about Instagram. This is what's on my Instagram right now. Yeah. Let's actually. I would love to actually have Daniel kind of kick us off with our Instagram conversation. What is Instagram like? What is it good for, Daniel?
Just as soon as I follow the Roxanne's Instagram, done.
Oh, I'm already following. Please get on board, Daniel. So if anyone wants to follow our art history teacher on Instagram, this is where she
Kepler is now following you. But I mean, look, you're a Kepler teacher. We actually weren't following you. I follow on the on any of these pages. Anytime I see one of our teachers has a platform, I'm like, oh, good. I follow it, I tag it, and then every time I post about it, I at least try to remember to always tag. So yes, drop your handles here. It's called.
Yeah. I think Roxana is a great example because she's an art history teacher and an artist. My wife is also most present on Instagram. She's also a visual artist. Think about what kind of teacher you are and what social media vehicles express things best for you. But Daniel, tell us about Instagram and the power thereof.
Did that work? I just tried to share the screen.
Oh, I got it. There you go.
Oh yeah. So here we go. This is who you'll be following. Roxanne's Instagram. The Instagram is great for visual. As Roxanne was just saying. And there are I'll actually start with the weaknesses because that's what kind of sets it apart. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and I'll share it again later maybe. So Instagram is very visual, and this is going to be a comment that applies to the strategy of building social media. The social media platforms that end up failing long term are the ones that allow you to do anything and everything. The death of MySpace was because you could do it could be anything. And websites tend to go that way too. So you have to do your own curating. So Twitter allows you, I think they upped it. Is it more than 140 characters now? But it's limited characters. Twitter's known. What's Twitter's limitation? Limited characters. That's what allows you to, that's their limitation. And limitation creates a certain kind of message, a certain kind of interaction. Facebook has tomes in the comment section. Philosophers get on Facebook and write books in the comment section. You can't do that as easily on Twitter, and that shapes the message. Instagram doesn't allow links, which keeps away a lot of spam. It also means it's a little harder to market if you want to share a picture of your class and they're like, how do I link to it? And so people work around it, but the workarounds are often the beauty. So you'll have a link tree, or on your main, you can put one link on your profile. So a successful use of a lot of platforms is learning the limitations and curating your message around it. Instagram is highly visual, and that's what. So you hashtags are the linking of Instagram, and you have to tell them something like, go to the Kepler website. You can't link. So highly visual posts, and what will capture the attention. There's no. They don't see the caption generally right away. Okay, let me go ahead and share this again. There we go. So notice as we're just on this page. Now this is on the computer, and most people view it on their phone. But you don't see any captions there. You just see images. And there's some good consistency here. I'm going to pull up the Kepler page. There's a lot of things you can do. You can be a little bit more, just posting stuff as you go along. What we did here is we paid attention to the pattern. Notice that we have a media post and then a class post alternating, and that creates this pattern. And so you can do that kind of thing with Instagram, and so that creates this feel as this branding as you go to the page. You don't have to. My personal Instagram is not like that. But this is the kind. These are the kind. It's a very visual. You can post videos. Limitation to 60 seconds, and those limitations will mean people will engage longer, easier. So YouTube, you can put a 3-hour. Here we go.
So here's my Instagram, and so I'll just mention that here I mix everything I do on Instagram. So for me, Instagram is like a little bonus thing. So there's a lot of personal family stuff, but then, like, for example, on Saturday I'm doing something about homeschooling. I'm doing a live about homeschooling that is actually a personal project. So I've put that on here. And Instagram, so Daniel talked about videos. At the end of this live, when it's just me and you guys, we'll talk about stories and using videos in the stream. So we'll go over some of how to do the practical stuff of what Daniel's talking about. Please continue, Daniel. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I was actually about to talk a little bit about stories and highlights, so I won't, because I'm going to wait till the end. But I'll make a more general comment, that'll kind of represent that. So there's limitations, but there's also, every platform gives you freebies. And this changes over time a little bit, and we can kind of help you with that. But there are things that they want you to do, so that they will promote almost artificially. So you might say you have a great Instagram and you post photos. Stories is one of them. They're like, if you post a story, we're going to show it to all your friends for 24 hours.
And stories integrate with Facebook.
Yes, and that in a great way. On Facebook, live videos is the newest thing they promote. But even videos, for a long time it was videos. If you posted videos, they're going to show that to people more disproportionately to other things. And now live, if you go live, they notify all your friends that you went live. So there are different things that different platforms will give you a freebie on if you curate your message to the way they want you to do it. And that's just, they're building a platform. It's just kind of how that works. So yeah.
And I do find that Instagram makes me more personal, whether I'm in the stories or the pictures. I couldn't use it in a professional way. I would fail at that. But so it pushes me in that direction. And so you should pay attention with how platforms influence you. So I don't know, Daniel, if how Instagram, like, you have this account for Kepler and for other,
right.
But how does Instagram affect you that way?
Yeah. Well, share my screen again. I just shared. I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So here's my personal one. First of all, you have a limited space in the header. You can say things like, I do this. So I tagged my wife there, but you can You can say I'm a teacher at Kepler Education and tag Kepler Education. Then they go and they can always go to and see your professional page. I have my highlights organized by notice I have Kepler here. It's personal, but so we have mixture of some professional posts, a bunch of personal posts. I love drone photography. If you like drone photography, give me a follow.
So I actually think Instagram is a good example of where, so for example, Helen asked about Facebook pages. I think it's very important that at least in your own mind on Facebook, you have a very sharp distinction between professional and personal. I think on Instagram, people expect you to be both.
Right. So there's I would be careful of not over posting professional stuff on my Instagram. Otherwise, people would basically say, well,
they'll tune you out.
They'll tune you out a little bit. So
well,
that's what I want to say on Instagram. So carry on.
Okay. I would actually like to talk to both Scott and Christine about websites. You guys both have professional websites. Ryan asked what a good hosting site to start a blog on might be. So actually, we could answer that question. You guys can answer that question. But professional site versus blog or with blog, just all the stuff about having a site. What recommendations would you make? What have you learned?
I guess I'll go first.
Sure.
I was just going to. There's really it depends on what your emphasis is going to be, blog versus website. I tend to think that putting the blog out front is going to be more beneficial, say for a teacher who for a teacher, marketing is teaching. Those two are equivalent. We're going to talk about this in Building the Tribe, next week. But in terms of going to a blog where you can keep content rolling out, and then people can learn more about you. My blog is a very simple, and it's focused primarily on content, and so it's a conscious choice of what's coming up, first. I think Christine, you do the opposite. Maybe I'm wrong. If last time I looked, I think you had the author webpage up with blog posts. Maybe you want to talk about
right. Sure. Yeah. And I want to address something that a few of you are probably wrestling with, and that is that it's uncomfortable to market yourself. I think if you don't have an issue with that, you just might be a really dominant personality. But I think it's strange to put your name on a website. It took a year for me to actually switch to ChristineNorville.com because I just couldn't handle that someone could Google me and find my name. And it was just a weird thing until I had a fellow writer friend mention to me, but why are you writing? Really, what's your purpose? And I said, because I want to help people. I want to help parents or teachers or fellow readers. And she said, but that's the key. The point is you're not producing just to fill a blog and just to get hits on a website. You are actually serving people. It actually is a service, and you need to look at it that way because it removes the pressure. And it's not so much about marketing yourself as what can I serve someone else? So how can I help in this case? How can I help families find me if they're looking for coursework and they're, just trying to find the right fit for the right subject and the right age? How can I serve them? That angle was everything to helping me figure that out.
So I'd like to talk about a couple of other aspects of your website, but before social media wise. But before we do that, how can teachers make this happen?
Well, you know what?
Pretty cool.
Well, I was just working with my own website and trying to figure out how to do it. I actually just took a screenshot of my course page, and then I added a link to the image. And that was the simplest, most direct way I could do that. It takes them straight to Kepler Education, and then they can read all they want to.
Yeah. Okay.
I knew it was a screenshot because the time zone was It wasn't adjusted for my time zone, which is fine because it says the time zone. And we did.
Which is fine. It's fine.
It would be a nerd. Only a nerd would have picked up on that.
Yeah, well, and believe it or not, there's a lot of coding going into that time zone thing. It is
Yes.
daylight savings. Oh my goodness. What can we get over that, please? Sorry, I will not rant about that. But our life would be so much easier on the coding side of things if we daylight savings, because we are working on a 24-hour adjustment. We want someone international or in any of the American time zones to come and do class in their own time zone. So I think we fixed all the issues there. But there was a little, some of you teachers knew about that. And so I'm done. I was just going to have that's how I knew it was a screenshot.
What do you use as a hosting site, Christine? How do you host your website?
I started out sort of self-made with the help of one of my boys who was in college at the time and a little bit of insight from my husband. And I started on a free site with Weebly. And basically Weebly, Wix, and WordPress were really pressing. They were really pushing their free sites and availabilities, especially for bloggers.
Well, while she unfreezes, I'll comment that my wife and I also use Weebly, but WordPress is very universal. There she is.
Oh, sorry, I don't know what happened. So, but yeah, I'd probably convert to Square. The more material that I create, the more books that I write, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. So, Scott mentioned that the blog for him is important. It's important to get that out there. So, so Christine did something interesting. If you find her on Twitter, which is one of the places she's most present, the link she's placed there to her website is actually to her blog, not to the front page. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is the front page, but if I come here from Twitter, which is a pretty likely thing to happen if I'm looking into Christine Norval, this is actually what I see first. And when I see this, not only do I see the content that she's creating, and of course I can go anywhere on her site I want, including Kepler classes, she has a little link to her LinkedIn page. So she's creating a sort of feedback sort of system. And I would actually love to talk about LinkedIn as well. Wait a second. Oops. Christine didn't do the thing I thought she was doing. Oh, nice. Okay, well, cool. Let's talk about LinkedIn anyway.
Her website creator.
Was that from my page?
Yes, well, it's the LinkedIn guy. So, so something wasn't finished, technically speaking.
I will look into that in case it was on my end.
You can link it to your LinkedIn. So.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
I thought it was.
So Dan Veltri is Tom to MySpace, Dan Veltri to Weebly, actually. So anyway, let's talk about LinkedIn though, because I think that's a really important platform for us. So as Daniel had to convince me that in fact LinkedIn is back and better than ever. I had already categorized it. I was one of those people that he described. LinkedIn did a certain thing for me 10 years ago, and it wasn't very good. So I would update it every 5 years. And then lo and behold, it actually is a powerful social media tool. Christine and Scott, do you guys use LinkedIn much at all?
I do a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So actually, Daniel has talked a little bit about LinkedIn already, and I would like him to again, but after Scott and Christine talk about how they might use it, because I know Daniel won't be able to help himself because LinkedIn is that powerful. And so he's going to go into a lot of detail about how you should use it. And it'll be important, but I would like to hear what Scott and Christine might have to say about LinkedIn use first. Scott.
You want me to go? Well, probably Daniel is going to contradict a lot of what I'm going to say about LinkedIn. But I do find that LinkedIn is really more of a giant business card where you can drip some content to keep people coming to the site. Pardon me. I find that the people who try to connect with me on LinkedIn are other professionals who want to sell me something, who want me to buy their service, who wants to, in some way, I probably got, the last 20 people want to connect. Would you look at this video? Would you watch this, this webinar? Would you read this article? Can we connect about things? And I personally don't find that very helpful. And I think that if people aren't using it well, it starts to get into that Saul Goodman kind of picture that we put up there earlier, we were talking about. And so I'm sure it can be used well, as Daniel's probably going to say, but I have not found it to be much more than just a social business card. So people can find you in the business world. You can drip some content there. That's how I would use it. But much more than that.
And whether you interpret it as Scott it does or Daniel does, I would say that without a question, you should have a LinkedIn account.
Yeah.
Every major platform you should be on, but it's very important to have a LinkedIn account, at least for professional reasons. And then we can debate a little bit of its marketing value. Christine, do you use LinkedIn?
I do. I probably check it once a week, not daily. And I agree, as a business card, it's a great reference. It's also great for connecting with peers, fellow teachers, because the last 2 years, I've really made an effort to follow or friend, I can't remember the right terminology on LinkedIn, other classical education teachers, administrators, tutors, whatever they have in their description of who they are, what kind of work they do. I'm looking for that kind of thing very intentionally, because we can cross-pollinate and help each other at any time. You never know when that connection can come in handy. And that's one of the values I see in continuing and at least keeping it current for me.
Yeah. And, so even when I was, as LinkedIn was evolving, and I was unaware of how powerful it was becoming, because it's basically like a cleaner, more professional Facebook at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I was still updating my profile, just going to my profile and update it occasionally. And my clients were professionals. I was teaching professionals English as a second language. And so, hey, you know what? That would get me the occasional student. Was it my bread and butter? Was it where I got most of my students? No. But it was worth updating occasionally just off of that, because occasionally someone would wander in and see, hey, there's an ESL teacher in my area who works, when you're an online teacher, it gets even better, but who works with these companies. So, you never know exactly how you might end up finding clients. Daniel, tell us about the power of LinkedIn.
Yeah. So I will not fully contradict Scott here, because there are kind of two ways to, actually, can I share mine?
Yeah, definitely.
There are two ways to use to LinkedIn. One is the business card approach, and there are here. I'll go ahead and share here. If you'll see, I have 4 unread. Is it still coming through?
Yeah.
I've got 4 unread messages on the side that I can tell are people who are trying to sell me something. So those do come in on the messaging side, especially. People pay to be able to reach out to you. But yes, it's true that if you just view it as the profile, unlike other platforms, the main profile is sort of the business card. It doesn't change. If this little, okay, where is it? Not featured. There we go. Activity. This bar right here is the only part that is mostly dedicated to other platforms. You go to Facebook and the entire thing is this bar. Most of it is static that you just update and it stays. And you have to push this little see all to even see the stuff I've been involved with on the profile. So that's the business card side. But on the home page, you have a more Facebook-like experience. But you have it's more tailored to professional development. There's your Darren Doan, a marketer and friend of mine who lives down the road, who is thinking about maybe teaching a class at Keppel Middle, right? But it is more of a professional development, and the conversations that happen here, the connections that happen here, are not the ones that tend to happen on other platforms. They can be more in depth. They can be where's the there we go. They can be more in depth and geared towards the subject you're talking about. You don't have the same trolling effect that Twitter and Facebook tend to have. And
so I actually think LinkedIn is a great example, Daniel, of one of the things we were talking about, which is like if you invest in it, it will pay off, right?
Right.
So, if you leave it there kind of sitting there as a business card, it's one thing.
Right.
If you start participating, you can actually create something of a community, certainly sharing of content and back and forth.
Right. And like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, who you follow you're going to create that following people is going to be a big will channel how your experience is. So if you get on Instagram even and you follow a bunch of outdoors channels, you're going to get all kinds of outdoors experience.
Right.
How your Instagram will feel. Instagram must be all about hiking, if you follow certain channels. Well, the same thing with LinkedIn. If you are following a bunch of other classical educators, you're going to see discussions about how to teach, about it was Greece better than Rome, the great debate. You're going to see those on your LinkedIn, and you won't see, and this is where LinkedIn tends to help. You won't see the cat pictures. Well, there's some, but as many of the cat pictures and the baby photos, and it is more geared towards that professional side. So and then in terms of, well, if it's kind of like Facebook but just a little different, is it really worth it? Here's where the idea that Facebook is huge and a lot of people are on it, but there's a certain plateauing that's happening. Instagram and LinkedIn are still growing. LinkedIn in particular is growing. A growing platform means that being on it earlier is helpful. So you're on it, you have a presence there, and as it grows, you grow with it, and you experience you're where other people are going who are moving a lot, and so there's a momentum that you can participate in.
And remember that people's parents are on LinkedIn. You're probably people's parents, and people's parents are on LinkedIn. So there's one more platform I'd like to talk about. We are hitting an hour.
Yeah.
So then after that, I'll give some practical tips to folks. Daniel, you have a comment?
Just real quick about that. Facebook has kind of everyone, but LinkedIn will have will tend to have more likely the kind of parents who are like you, and therefore in a natural way will be the easiest sell for your courses. So there is also they tend to be the higher income because they are in the professional development. Now, that's more of a big picture observation, but it really isn't a bad place in terms of connecting on a professional level. But we both care for the same things. So go ahead, Joffrey.
Yeah. So I'm going to show a particular social media platform that is worth considering about, but I also want it to be sort of a springboard for us to talk about any random platforms. And guys, now would be a great time to ask practical questions, because as we kind of wind down, I will be showing some very extremely practical mechanical things at the end of this. After we let our honored and dignified guests go. But this guys is Pinterest. So in LinkedIn, perhaps we find the ones who bring home the bacon, and on Pinterest we find those who prepare the bacon. I don't know if that would be fair, but I like the symmetry of that. So this is my own. This just reflects the masculine things I suppose I'm into. Pictures of Michael Jordan. This is my Pinterest. This is not your average Pinterest, because overwhelmingly Pinterest is used by women. It's very visual, but it's also very household oriented. Does anybody here use Pinterest at all? Tiny little bit. Yeah.
I use it, but I don't like it.
So homeschooling is big on Pinterest. And so this could be one that you might decide is worth pouring effort into. But as we talk about other like smaller platforms, there are a lot of platforms out there that cater to teenagers and young people. I do not find them profitable for myself as an independent teacher, but perhaps some of you guys watching do. Perhaps some of the people here do. Is anyone here on TikTok? All right, Scott's on TikTok, my man. Well, how do such platforms come into play for you, Scott?
Well, we were just kind of I started on TikTok because I think Daniel and Darren Doan, I think, had actually said you guys need to be on TikTok. And Daniel and I had played. Daniel's been a lot more consistent and faithful. I put up a few videos just for fun, but surprisingly, probably a lot more people tend to interact a little bit more, I think, with visual social media platforms. And so things like Pinterest or TikTok, I think, and Instagram could be very helpful if you use links. And you were talking about some of the smaller Linktree. I think I had mentioned that earlier. Daniel had mentioned it. That helps with some of the visual platforms where people can find a link, say, back to your courses or to your blog, something a little bit more important, that, you know, they see something visual, it's interesting, maybe a comment about it, and then the Linktree gives them options of, you know, do you want to study with me? Do you want to learn more? You know, whatever. There could be several different options. And this might not be the time to talk about it, Joffrey, but before we go, I would like to mention a few tools that are kind of related that I think are helpful. So
absolutely.
You want me to do that?
Yeah, that'd be great. I think that's a perfect transition.
Okay.
So actually, you know what? I will give Christina and Daniel a chance to bail out now. How does that sound?
It's totally fine.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. I think one of the most important things we could have done here, and thanks to you know, there have been 15 people watching this entire time, so that's wonderful. That's really great attendance for a live event. We're really glad you guys have been here. We hope it's been helpful. I think the biggest message really is that we're regular people. And you know, we've been doing this it's been an important part of how we do business in different ways for each of us. And I don't think any of us operate exclusively through social media. That's not right. But it's been an important part of how we work. And look at us. Look how normal we are.
We hope.
Yeah. Yeah, Daniel.
I would like to leave a parting word about if this has been overwhelming. Like, wait a minute, all these platforms, they're all new to me. Please don't be overwhelmed by it. Start one, ask for help. Just, do that first step. Like, okay, let's get a Facebook page or oh, I know this one. And just, post that first post, just start in, and it really does grow organically.
Yes.
You don't have to do it all right now. Don't take notes from this meeting if you've never done social media and go, okay, I've got to start all these platforms, and just start with one, like, the one you think would be most comfortable. Maybe the one your children can help you get starting on.
So actually, let me interject here. So New Heights Academics, which is Carla Mema, she has mentioned that it is in fact overwhelming. Can we post follow-up sessions, which we will do, and we're putting up videos that are specific to platforms on the training part of Google Classrooms. But so we're going to do that now. When Daniel and Christine leave, Scott and I will be staying on, and we can just interact now. So Carla, you're first in line. So whatever specific platforms you want to talk about, you're first in line.
Right, and I will. I'm going to be. I already made a video. I may redo it due to some bad audio, which is another thing to talk about. But very basic, like walking through. Okay, with a screen capture. Here's what it looks like to start a Facebook page, LinkedIn page, Instagram page, and I'm going to. My mom may watch this later, so she's going to laugh. But I'm going to be keeping her in mind on some of the really basic videos, and in some cases, I will create two versions. Okay, if you're familiar with social media, here are some tips for optimization. Or if you're totally new, I'm going to walk through it as though I was helping my mom set it up, which means it's going to be very basic. So, and don't be overwhelmed. Just one step at a time.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and we'll help through each of those steps. Thank you, Daniel, for being here. Carla did comment that her brain is so tired. So yeah, just hang out as long as you like. I'll be here, and we'll continue to be here. So no worries there. Christine, thank you for being here as well.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right. So long, Daniel and Christine, and then. Scott and I, let's talk. We'll talk, and so just before we do that, just to make a note that so we did go for well over an hour, guys, and I apologize for that. That's on me as far as how we move through the agenda. So we love that you guys are still here. We're going to keep trucking. If in fact our brains are tired, that is completely understandable. And like I said, we're still going to be here. Yeah. Scott.
Yeah.
Tools.
I think there's several tools that would be helpful, particularly for those who are, they kind of feel overwhelmed in managing a bunch of systems or a bunch of different platforms. One of those tools that I think would be really helpful for people to explore would be something like Buffer. And the one thing I would say about that is, when you talked earlier about mammalian versus reptilian, Buffer is sort of a reptilian as a platform, but it allows you to put in a bunch of different posts, and then you can post these to a variety of different platforms. So you can make one post and have it go to Facebook, have it go to Twitter, have it go to a variety of different platforms. And the reason I think that would be helpful is when this seems overwhelming, you can focus personally on one, but you could use a tool like Buffer, which I think is free. They have a paid platform, but I think they have a free platform where that can just throw that content out to some of those other platforms while you're just focusing on one.
Right. And one of the things you and I are going to be talking about on Tuesday is really being careful about selecting which platforms you use. And I think we didn't hit on that hard enough today. We ended up moving so fast through so many things, but really it's about, you have to be selective. You're not going to be doing all the stuff we talked about. Now, if you're feeling ambitious and you do want to kind of make your presence a little more out there for a bunch of platforms, something like Buffer is very powerful.
Yeah. There's another tool that I think is helpful, and it's free as well, called Canva, canva.com. And Canva allows you, without having to buy expensive Adobe software. I use like Adobe to build images and things, but something like Canva allows you to create Instagram posts or Facebook pictures, and they're already tailored to the specific size of the different platforms. So they have different templates there, and it's free. And you can design these are just free design tools that you could use those to throw up some different images or things like that. Because I hear a lot of times people trying to put pictures up and they're confused about the sizes and it doesn't look very good. And
right.
So a tool like Canva is a free tool that's also, I think, helpful.
And actually, we should post that up in the Slack, because we've had teachers already designing their own content, which is wonderful.
Yep.
Of course, people at so many different levels of comfort and what tools they feel they can use. And so something like that can guide you is pretty great.
Yeah. Buffer has their own called Pablo.com, pablo.buffer.com. But and again, it's free, but it's almost the same exact thing. And I'll throw those all up in the marketing Slack channel. Notography is another one. Again, these are just real free ones. And then Goodreads. We didn't talk much about Goodreads. I don't know if that's worth mentioning, but that's a place for people to talk about your books, as a teacher, talk about what you're reading, and that might be a place where you connect with somebody who's interested in taking classes. So.
Right. Yeah, and Goodreads is a platform where I'm just present. I have a profile. I haven't updated actually in years. And just the other day, someone reached out to me because of Goodreads.
Good, yeah. Same.
So yeah, I mean, that sort of thing happens where it's just important to have a profile. Well, guys, so as Scott says so long, I'm going to stay on a little bit to give you guys a chance to ask me questions that I can walk you through on screen share. So just depending on how you guys want to interact, we'll make decisions from there. Scott, thanks for being here, and I'm looking forward to Tuesday when we'll talk actually some philosophy of marketing.
Absolutely. Thanks, Joffrey.
All right, so long. Okay, guys. So what I would love to make myself available to you to talk about any particular tools. So for example, with Instagram, I'll share my Instagram here. So we talked about stories and timelines, right? So I am what I'd like to do here is just talk about very basic, fundamental stuff having to do with using each of the platforms. But what I would love is for you guys who are watching to tell me what platforms you would like to go over yourselves. So as you do that, I'll sort of describe Instagram. Now, Instagram, you have to use your phone to post content. You can't actually use a computer to put all this stuff up. You can view it through a computer, but really it's a mobile platform, which actually is part of its power. So here we have Christine.
Lewis is very thorough.
Yay. All right, so this is actually a video that was posted as an audio clip. So you can post video and pictures. So here's an artist I follow. All right, like so Roxanne is an artist on Instagram. My wife is, and so is Mark Mulfinger in South Carolina, and he's wonderful. So it's just all the visuals, right? But then up here, you have stories. So these are all my friends who are posting stories. This is video that ends up going away at a certain point. So here is New St. Andrews College. So the question is, can you have personal Instagram and professional? Yes, you can, absolutely. So let me show you how easy that is. And you can see some of the video coming up here. All right, so yeah, let's go ahead and go in there and go and look at that. So actually, I'm not sure how easily I can see this from the computer because it's made for phone use. But so here's my profile. So on your phone here at the bottom, you can switch back and forth between the different profiles you start with the same address. And I don't think I can actually show that here. So yeah, Instagram is a mobile one. But the answer to your question is yes, you can have personal Instagram and professional. And on your phone, it's that easy, just a flick of a thumb to decide which one you're using. So if we look at Twitter, so here's my Twitter feed right now. You can see I have these 8 notifications over here. And here on the Twitter website, you can see some of the functionality that exists on Instagram as well. I can switch back and forth. So I can manage Kepler Education's Twitter account from here, and I can just hop back and forth. So here's a professional one. Here is a personal one. Or if I choose it to be, I can have a bunch of personal ones, right? Maybe I just want to tweet or have an Instagram just about flowers. And then, so Daniel has a video, which is I would love for you guys to be to watch in our training folder on Google Classrooms about how to start a Facebook page and how to get all that rolling. Unless you guys have any specific questions about any of these platforms, such as the question we were just asked. Questions. So we looked today at why we should use these platforms. We underemphasized how you should not be using all of these platforms, right? Have an account, have a presence, and then choose how you're gonna focus on each one. And we talked about the benefits and drawbacks of each of the major platforms. Instagram wants to use my Facebook account. Is it better to set up a separate one? Not necessarily. So Lori, some of the so I have my Instagram connected to one of my pages. So I definitely think that if you don't have a Facebook page set up yet, you should do that. So my Facebook page is just called Joffrey Swait Teacher. And that differentiates it from my personal Joffrey Swait page. My wife, who's a painter, has Kimberly Swait Painter as her Facebook page. You can come up with creative names if you like, but so we have professional pages. And my Instagram is connected to my Facebook page, but I can choose what goes over there. So if I create content that is not professional, it doesn't go over to that page. So I would, if I were you, I would integrate, if you're thinking about using Instagram, depending on how you're thinking about using Instagram, you would integrate it differently. I hope that answers the question. I read just to sprinkle a few selfies on Instagram. What do you think? I read just sprinkle a few selfies on Instagram. What do you think? I think that, and I could actually tell by looking at your Instagram that it was of limited utility to you. I think it sort of depends on what you're trying to do with it. And it's much more powerful than that, right? So the question is, what platforms do you want to focus on? What caters to what you teach, what you're trying to accomplish best? And so you as an art teacher, Roxanne, might actually find, as an art history teacher, might actually find that Instagram is very powerful for you because there's such a visual aspect to what you're doing. So I would actually recommend that for you, Instagram be a lot bigger, be a much stronger presence for you. And there are ways to integrate Instagram into other things you're doing, like when we're talking about with Lori, with Facebook, or if you have your own website. Weebly and many other hosting platforms allow you to integrate your Instagram into their sites. So if you're not going to use Instagram with frequency, then just having an account is great. But yeah, I think it's more powerful than that. So you must have been speaking to someone to whom Instagram would not have been quite as useful. I'm glad that helped, Lori. That's awesome. So Daniel mentions that it's very easy to navigate between accounts, both on Instagram and on Twitter. So you set up a business one, it's just a flick of a thumb to get back and forth. And those are the sort of concrete things we're very happy to show you how to do. On Instagram, it's very similar to what it is on Twitter. Here's an example, guys, of a Facebook page that I started as a teacher. Okay, so one of my client bases has been Brazilians wanting to learn English. I'm Brazilian. And so I created this page to attract people to me, with content about learning English, and it's specifically it's specifically designed for Brazilians. Now, because it was a side project for me, and it really wasn't about me, because it was not about me as Joffrey Swait, the teacher, I was trying to create content that people might find charming. I got a lot of likes, and this was a failure as far as community and business goes. So Good Morning Brazil is actually offline. You can see there, this page isn't visible because it got a lot of likes and was absolutely not a success because it wasn't me. I wanted it to be me. You can see there's a picture of me, but I wasn't thoughtful enough about curating material that showed people who I was and what I do. Instead, I filled it with memes about how fun and funny it is to learn English. That was a mistake I made. So there's an example of how you can mismanage your social media presence. Here's my LinkedIn, and I am able to keep track of a lot of people that have similar professional interests here. So, and it's just like Facebook, as you can see, as far as the feel of it goes. If you're comfortable on Facebook, you'll be comfortable on LinkedIn. It's just a different style of content. Okay. So those are the platforms that I'm on, that I use frequently. What are your thoughts on memes from marketing, since we're on the topic? Yeah, that's a great question. So my experience has been that they backfire. They're good at creating having a lot of followers, but again, followers is not success, is not marketing, right? So it depends on what you're trying to do. But since you're trying to bring teachers, it brings students on. The memes don't do that at all, right? Now, if you're trying to build Ryan Griffith's internet superstar, memes are great. So that would be my take on it. So if we kind of go back to this idea here, right? So why are we doing this? And we're not doing this to be good at social media. And if you're worried about being good at social media, don't be, right? So you just want to show everybody that you're a teacher who's worth following. And you're creating that tribe. So one of the things that we're going to be looking at on Tuesday is, what does my tribe look like? Who am I marketing to? And I think if we thought carefully about where memes belong, they're just not personal enough. Instagram stories are interesting because you absorb them like this, but it's you, and people are learning to like you through your social media. There's definitely a room to be very personal and gain business through being personal. That's not the only way to do it, but you can gain business through being personal. You can market yourself by being personal, but memes aren't personal. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I hope that you guys found this helpful. The next one on Tuesday will be focused on building your tribe and on reptilian versus mammalian, and it will be Scott and I. So the two of us will have a presentation for you guys, and we'll field questions afterwards. Thank you so much for being here. Again, I hope this has been helpful, and hope you have a great weekend. So long, everybody.